I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story. 33 years ago, I was a young college student. I remember the day perfectly. I was sitting in my apartment with my other roommates. We were popular because we had the only TV set in our apartment building. Everybody would come to our apartment and watch TV. Well, on one of those days, I was sitting in my room, and these two girls knocked on the door, came in our apartment. They wanted to meet us. Well, they walked through the doors. It was like the heavens parted, the angels sang, "La!" And there she was. I can remember exactly what she was wearing 33 years ago. So I got to know her. I found out what she liked. I found out what her interests were. So what did I do? I found out she liked sports. So I joined a co-ed volleyball team. I challenged her after school to play basketball. I'd say, let's go play basketball. I'll give you an 18-point lead. We'll play to 20. Whoever loses has to buy dinner. Either way, I won. Very smart, huh? I remember our first date. I knew she was interested in someone else and not interested in me. So I knew competition was very high. I was a skinny little kid from Montana who wore boots and a belt buckle. She was from Phoenix, Arizona, a completely different culture and environment, and not interested in me at all. Oh, yeah, that's me with the mullet back there. I thought, man, I'm going to have to pull out all the stops on this one. So for our very first date, I thought I'd do something different, out of the ordinary. Rather than going to dinner and a movie, we went outside of town to some ice caves. I thought we would go explore. So I went out ahead of time and I built a campfire. We were on a double date, so there were 4 of us. I made what's called tinfoil dinners. Our dinner was cooking in the campfire. We went and explored the caves, came back out, and dinner was served. Of course, I had a guitar there waiting by the campfire. I was trying everything I could, everything I could do, because I knew the competition was high. Well, needless to say, my efforts weren't in vain. It all worked out. And here I am, 33 years later. And I'm here in Singapore with all of you, my USANA family. As I think about that moment in time, I think about how it relates to USANA and what we're all about and what we're doing. And that's what I want to talk about today. Because quite honestly, when I look back from then to today and where the future is headed, there's one thing that remains constant, and that's how much things have changed. Things keep changing. Take, for instance, my family. We love the outside. We love doing fun things together. My family is growing and changing. With that change, we also have to keep being relevant to one another. Same goes with that 33-year-old relationship with my wife. How do we remain relevant to one another? I've changed. So has she. We've gone through a whole lifetime of raising 4 children who are now grown and married, which means being relevant is more important. And quality of longevity in a relationship becomes critical. And over that time, there have been other big things in my family's life that have changed. One big thing, and you can probably guess what that is. It's called USANA. That's a big change in my life. I began work with Dr. Wentz and Dave 24 years ago. And you know what? USANA is not the same company it was 24 years ago. Neither is the nutritional supplement industry. The direct selling industry. Not our family of distributors. The way we communicate is even different. Who would have thought that over 24 years ago, our lives will be consumed and managed by this? Who would have thought that 24 years ago? Right? I can remember getting my first cell phone. It was a big brick. And we were amazed that we could go anywhere and talk on the telephone. Staying relevant is something we should all ask ourselves in all aspects of our lives. That is why staying relevant, adapting to change, and constantly reinventing our skills, ideas, and our values should remain one of the most important steps we can do to improve who we are. And we have to improve how we do it. So you can build a better, stronger, more relevant USANA business and team that supports all of our success. I read quite a bit. I always try and read one book on every trip. I got a lot out of this book about remaining relevant. That it used to be that most people would protect and control their distribution channels when they were doing business. In today's marketplace, you have to add value. How do you add value? Some USANA associates do it by having meetings on the beach or having an exercise class. Some add value by recording weekly videos and talking about nutrition. And some do it just by being a friend. People add value in many different ways, but you have to add value if you want your customers to continue doing business with you. I invite you to think about what value proposition you're adding to those in your organization. Value is critical. You see, middlemen or distributors must add value if consumers are going to continue to use them. The marketplace is very different than it used to be. Shopping online has changed everything. So there has to be a value proposition. You have to add value when you're talking to people as you're building your USANA business and your network. I love this quote. My wife actually had it on a plaque by our door. We hope that our teenage children, when they would go out the door, they would see this plaque, and then they are out in the car on a date, or they're out one Friday night, they would remember this sign, and it would change their behavior. The plaque read, "Knowing who you are will change what you do." Think about that. Knowing who you are will change what you do. You see, we knew if our teenage children knew really who they are, who they were, who they are today, it would change their behavior. We hope that they would make decisions, the right decisions, based on the knowledge of who they were, who they knew they were. Knowing who you are changes what you do. So, the question is, and we've probably asked this question several times, I'm going to ask it one last time. Do you know who you are? That may seem like a ridiculous question, but it's a very profound question. Who you are is a compilation of things that you find most important in your life. Your value system, as Dave Wentz talked about. The values you choose are who you are. They become your core values. Many of us come to crossroads or points in our lives where we have to choose a way to go. We've heard many stories today where that happened. You can choose one way or the other. You might recall last year I talked about understanding who you are. When you understand who you are, it does change what you do. 33 years ago, my wife could have chosen someone else. She was interested in someone else. She certainly could have done that. My wife was at a crossroads, deciding which way to go, and what happened? I want to talk to you now about something that goes with staying relevant, moving our lives forward in every way, and then moving our USANA business forward that goes hand in hand with relevancy and knowing who you are and your value system. You see at USANA, and I believe John Addison said this, we don't need more distributors. We need leaders. Right?
Yes.
We need leaders in USANA. We don't have an enrollment issue in USANA anywhere in the world. We need you to step up and be leaders. That's what we need. Being a leader takes effort. It takes work. It takes being very conscientious of who you are, who you want to be, and what you want to accomplish. One of my favorite authors is John Maxwell. I've traveled across the country to his classes, and I've read most of his books. I'm telling you, if you're not reading books on leadership, you're not a leader. Did you pick something up from Dr. Dennis Waitley? He said something very important. He said, I just learned. See, he is always learning. He'll come into my office at USANA, he'll say, Kevin, do you have just a minute? I need to talk to you. I'll say, sure. We'll sit down and talk, and he'll share with me something he's learning about. If you're not reading and studying about leadership, you are not a leader. Because even leaders, like Dr. Waitley, are still reading books, even though they've written most of the books. You need to invest in yourself. I want you to take a few minutes and think about a concept that I'm going to present that came from one of John Maxwell's books entitled The 21 Laws of Irrefutable Leadership. I believe it's the foundation of leadership, the foundation of life. It was the foundation of my success in landing my sweetheart. I think it's also how my success is becoming very close with many of you over the last several years. John Maxwell has recognized 21 laws of leadership. I'd like to encourage you to read this book and look at the other 20. I'm going just to talk about one, the law of connection. How do you connect with people? You see, we are in the people business. My favorite John Addison quote, you don't run an organization, you run an organism. It's living, it's breathing, it's alive. And the only way for it to grow is there to be a connection. You have to touch hearts before you ask for a hand, just like we did with the Trail Foundation, touching hearts before touching a hand. The law of connection is critical. They have to feel connected to you. There's an old saying, to lead yourself, use your head. To lead others, use your heart. That's the nature of the law of connection. Always touch a person's heart before you ask for a hand. By doing this, you will connect in ways you never thought possible. So as you think about this question of how to connect, I'm going to quickly go through 8 principles that John Maxwell's book points out to help facilitate the law of connection. Principle number 1, connect with yourself. I ask the question, do you know who you are? Do you know what you're changing and how you're changing? You're not the same person you were a year ago. You're not the same person when you signed up at USANA. Hopefully in a better way. The goal is to constantly improve, but you have to be connected to yourself. People can see it in an instant if you have no connection with yourself. That's critical. He throws out a challenge that I'm going to challenge all of you today. He says, ask yourself these questions. Then go ask 3 people the same questions. Compare your answers. Make sure these 3 people are people who know you and will give you honest answers. When you compare the 3 answers, yours to the 3 people you trust, if they're different, that is a blind spot. That is something that you need to work on to help you